Goodbye endless trips to the pharmacy, and hello MedSync. All your meds ready for one monthly pickup with no hassle. Give James Drugstore a call to get started.
And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, and this is from the Cheap Seats, which is duly named after this gentleman's column. And I'm going to let him introduce himself real quick this morning. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, this is Rob DeArmond. I'm the sports editor here at the Livingston Parish News.
We appreciate you joining us today. We are finally going to be talking a little football.
We're here, man.
Yep, we are here. We are here, but it is here.
It is here.
Scrimmages start next week, but we'll be getting into that in a second. First and foremost, we want to talk about I guess you can call him a legacy Walker athlete that ended up at Southeastern, and has now found himself in the head seat.
He's the head coach,
of the track and field program, correct?
Yeah.
So that's going to be Mr. Reams. Tell us a little bit about
Michael Reams. He was named interim coach. Corey Mastretta left to take a job at St. Michael, and Coach Reams was named the interim coach I believe at the end of June. Got a chance to catch up with him last month during the coaches caravan, which stopped at Greystone Country Club, and we just sat down, and it's a great chance. I called and I said, "Hey, is he coming?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I said, "Good. I want to sit down and see what's going on." And he was just beaming. I said, "Can you kind of put it in perspective where you are and what you're doing now?" And he's like, "Man, I just I'm just so blessed." And it's he said he felt like it's a win for Livingston Parish, because he's also very mindful of the success that previous coaches, Sean Brady and Coach Mastretta, have had, and he just kind of wants to build on that. I think by doing that, he said, we want to show that we can compete and everything, and he wants to kind of boost the schedule a little bit. So when they get to those, those postseason meets and those postseason events, that they know that they can compete. And he said, I think with the athletes that we have here, we just have to get to that point, and that's part of but also very, like I said, very mindful of the success the program's had before, and he realizes, and being part of the program, he's a former Southeastern athlete, being a part of that, he knows the expectations, he knows what's expected. Also talked to him about they have a handful of Livingston Parish athletes there, and he said that's something that he said he wants to get as many as he can get from Livingston Parish because he knows the quality of athletes that are here.
Sure. So, good for them to have that connection and that potential funnel coming from this area.
Absolutely.
So getting into, the topic of the day, which is football, you have now had a chance to take the tour. You've been to all 5 schools practice. Of course, we have the 3 5As, Denham, Walker, and Live Oak. We have the 3A Albany and the 2A Springfield. Some interesting storylines coming from around the parish, but the big thing right now is just competing with weather.
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about your tour, and let's start with Denham, since they are on the cusp of being able to utilize their new facilities.
Actually, Denham was the only school the day I went out. That was Tuesday earlier this week. Great weather, excellent weather. They are on the turf out there. If you haven't got a chance to go look at it and see what's going on, it's really nice. It's a different kind of turf, and it was pretty steamy out there. But you're not feeling as much heat coming off of that turf, and I think that's by design the way it's worked out. In talking to Coach Beard afterwards, it's one of those things where you kind of don't think about it, but they're practicing on the field at the church, and they're practicing on the turf at the new baseball field, and you kind of don't. They're lining off yardage with cones, and it's kind of a little bit different thing. And he said you could kind of see it when we first started on 7-on-7, where you're used to going your certain depths and your certain spacing on your routes and things like that. And once you get out there on the turf and you can actually see it, it's like, okay, it's a little bit different, but at the same time you're like, okay, this is a good deal. You could tell the kids were happy to be out there. There's a little spring in their step, and they're just and the other part was it was Tuesday. That was the first day of school, and you kind of I was talking. Coach Wax was over there, and we were talking a little bit, and I said that could be the longest day of the year. When it comes to going through school and going through practice and things like that. but just me observing, it looked like the kids handled it really well, and they're getting used to that new turf and that new deal, and like Coach Beard said, they're going to be a part of this. The first team to go through this whole new stadium process, so and it will be a process for them to get there. Looking at, I've got the schedule right here for Denham. Right, their first home game in that stadium is scheduled for October the 14th, which is their homecoming game against Santa Maria. So that's just to give you guys an idea of how they're kind of framing when that stadium will be ready to have people in it.
Right, and the construction crews there have had the same problem the football teams have.
Exactly.
Battling weather.
Exactly.
It has been a very rainy 2 weeks, especially now. So I know that David Gray sat down with Superintendent Joe Murphy last week, and he said, our office, the school board members, Denham High office, Denham High coaches, everybody's starting to get, on the construction crews, like, hey, when are y'all really going to be ramping back up? When is this going to happen? So that's a good date to have.
I will give those guys with the turf credit, because I went out there, I think it was the second week of July, and they were putting the gravel down for the track, and I think it was the adhesive layer they were putting on the concrete for the turf. And then the next week, I believe Denham football shared a picture with the turf down. And I said, man, that was a lot of work they got done in a week. So I'll give them that. And what they're having to do is you go walking out the back of the field house there, and they took some pallets, and you got to walk on those pallets and be real careful how you get out. But that's how they're getting out. I went through the front. I was going to go through the weight room, and it said emergency exit only, and I said, okay, let me go to the other door, and then there happened to be a player there in the locker room, because the next door said the same thing, and I'm like, okay, man, how are y'all getting out of here? And he goes, no, you can go through that door, but like I said, you hit those pallets, and but it's all progress. It's one of those things that Coach Beard said it's part of the deal, and we'll gladly take it, to get that finished product.
Sure. So let's head up Highway 16 into the Watson area and talk about Live Oak.
Went to Live Oak yesterday. Actually, that's the only school that I haven't seen practice. I want to see them practice a little bit. So Coach Westmoreland and his crew went at 6:15 yesterday morning to try to avoid some of this weather. And the plan was to come back and do some special teams work in the afternoon, but the lightning got them. So basically, it sat there and basically did. If you've seen the video interview, I actually mentioned it. We're sitting in a lightning delay right now while we're doing this interview. The plan was to go out, but it popped again, and they just kind of called it off, sent the kids home. But just in talking to him, he said he's never seen the beginning of a season like this, where you're kind of at the mercy of the temperatures, and it's either temperatures or the lightning. And so basically what he said he's had to do is, he said, I've got 2 practice plans. So we go out with one, and if the lightning hits, I flip the page over and we go to the lightning plan. And he said, I've never had to do that before. He said, so far they've lost, and I say so far, they've lost 2 days of practice, but they're trying to keep it to where if something like that happens, they either go to the weight room or they're watching film. So it's not a completely lost day. Cause like he said, at this point, when we get to scrimmages next week, when we get to jamborees and we get to that first game, nobody's going to care how many days you lost because of lightning or weather. Nobody cares. They just want to see what you put out on the field on Friday night.
Right. You got to show up to play.
That's it. Exactly.
All right. Well, coming back down Highway 16 and then heading over 190, let's hit Walker.
Went to Walker. The fun part about Walker with Coach Mahaffey is they call it boot camp. So they basically go through 2-a-days. I believe they started last Wednesday and they wrapped up on Sunday. At that point, I saw them, I think, on Thursday. It was I think they were in a little bit of a delay because of weather, but the weather kind of cleared out. Had a little bit of sprinkling right at first, but they were able to get it in there. He said at that point they had lost one day of their boot camp, but it's a big part for them in terms of building that chemistry and camaraderie with the team. Is kind of what they're trying to do there, and it was just fun to watch. I stayed for the whole practice, and they get to that team period, and the offense goes on one spot, and defense goes to one spot, and they're there's some trash talking going on, and but it also kind of raises the level, and it's like Coach Mahaffey said, we don't mind it, but between us just to kind of raise, but at the same time, we have respect for the game, and it's not something we want to carry over to the folks we're playing against, but it was just fun to see, and just it kind of raised up that intensity on both sides of the ball, and you could see every play was important to those guys. Hey, if the offense wanted to play, you'd hear it from the offense. If the defense wanted to play, you'd hear it from the defense. And that was just kind of going back and forth. And then at the end of the deal, when they come into the huddle at the end of the practice, everybody's giving everybody high fives and good jobs. And I think that the coaching staff, it was something they were happy to see there.
Yeah, yeah, and a little friendly competition never hurt anybody.
That's it. That's exactly it.
So let's continue down 190 all the way to the over east side of the parish, and Albany.
Albany,
coach.
Yeah, Coach Lagoria, John Lagoria. I've known him for a long time. This was his. I went out Monday, which was actually their first day of practice. And lightning got them too. They were out for a little while, and you could see him kind of working, and it just kind of showed up. There was no rain or anything like that, but then as they went back inside, just looking at the weather, it looked like it was going to come from Tangipahoa Parish on down. So they wound up finishing that day in the weight room. The thing in talking to Coach Lagoria, he said the biggest thing for them is how his team has kind of picked up, because they're going to kind of a wing tee. If you kept up with Coach Lagoria, that's something that he's done throughout his career, and they're gonna put some run pass option concepts, and some spread concepts. So they're gonna build off of that wing tee. But when he was hired, it's basically been it's just 2 or 3 months here, and they've had to kind of condense things in. And he said the retention that the team has had. He said, I've got a really smart team. And I think when we went on in a 7-on-7, at first during the summer, they start seeing some of that success that they're having, and they're saying, okay, this can work, and we see how it can work. So he said, participation's been great over the summer, and the kids are just looking to absorb, as much as you can bring to them. And he said that's been a real plus for them heading into the season.
Well, and you like to hear that there's an excitement there with a new coach.
Right.
So because Albany's been through several coaches the last 5 years.
Yes.
So heading down 22, and last but certainly not least, 2A Springfield. How are they doing?
Went to Springfield, went on their first day. I think it was last Tuesday. I think I had left here, and I think the weather followed me. So when I got to the field, they were out. They were getting ready to go, and then Mandy Surpass, Coach Surpass's wife, and their trainer is sitting there, and she's looking at the radar, and they kind of looked at me and said, what do you think? And I said, if it's following me, you guys aren't going to be here very long. So I think they went into meetings. They just immediately went to the gym right there across the street. And so that first day they were in the gym, just kind of figuring some things out. And, and I think that's 2 years in a row that they've kind of started in the gym, but that's where, you have to do it. You've got to make sure you get your work in. Big thing for them is Coach Storm Reeves, who's been there a couple of years, their offensive coordinator, took a job at Central just recently, right as school was starting. So they're going to have a new offensive coordinator in Kevin Henderson. You guys probably remember him. He was a quarterback for Coach Surpass back when he took over. And he's got also Clint Husser is a former head coach at Pine, is also back on the staff helping us. So he said he's going to kind of lean on those guys to kind of get things done there on that offensive side. But, and he said the same thing, just in terms of the team retaining things from the spring and then through 7-on-7, it's been really good. And I'm pretty sure it's just a general question I asked just to see how they're doing. And every coach right now has said everything's been, in terms of where they are and in terms of keeping that knowledge that they've been, I guess, implementing, they're holding on to it really well.
Yeah, so there's the sort of update on the 5 teams that have all started practice, and of course school has started.
School's here.
So there, it's interesting to see that transition, because that right there, you typically for your fall athletes, the summer ends a little earlier than it does for everybody else. But of course, then you have to start school with them as well. So it's kind of an interesting transition.
Right.
Last but certainly, I use that phrase for Springfield, but don't want to forget about the ladies playing volleyball.
Yes.
You'll be catching up with those teams kind of over the rest of this week.
Talk with a couple coaches so far. Just be on the lookout for those. I'm going to head out to talk with Walker and Live Oak. So far, I'm going to head out to Springfield this afternoon. So just be on the lookout for those on the website. And I just it's always good to catch up and just see some faces you hadn't seen in a while. And we're back into it. It's here. It's like my wife said. She said I'll see you in about 10 months. So. She knows how it works.
Oh yeah, part of the game. So, sir, if you'll introduce yourself real quick, and we'll head into Mr. David Gray's segment.
Hey, this is Rob DeArmond, sports editor with the Livingston Parish News.
And my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys for joining us for This is From the Cheap Seats, where I sit down with Rob and we talk about sports here in Livingston Parish. Please remember the news is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.